Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, the liberal loudmouth, and as always, I'm here with.
The real Ron.
What's up, Ron? How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm excited about this show, dude, man.
Yeah, we got something special for everybody today, don't we?
Oh yeah, we got something special today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And man, I'm really excited about today's show. Yeah, go ahead, tell them about it. Go. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Well, you go ahead. This was all you, Ron. So you set them
Yeah.
up.
Stan Stevens. If you don't know who Stan Stevens is, he's a GOP candidate for District 79, and he's running against Melissa Provenzano. And I've known Stan and Jennifer for years. Jennifer is the vice chairman for GOP chair. Stan has been the what was it, treasurer for Washington
Yes,
County?
county treasurer. Yep.
Yeah, for Washington County, and he's been at this for years, and he's been, oh my God, he's got a great story. I can't wait to bring him on and listen to this story. But Stan is, I believe in Stan, and I'm glad that Melissa's agreed to come on as well. But I can't wait to hear his story and let him speak to y'all about this.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and pull him in there.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Hey, Stan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing fine.
Oh,
Doing
you put the
fine.
jacket on and everything.
I did.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
you promoted me as a guy in a suit, so I thought I better show up in a suit.
Every time I've seen Stan, he's been in like a zoot suit. He's been in like a really nice suit, and I'm like, I'm wearing a tank top and just screaming America. And
Well, this
Yeah, I
is
like
what
that.
say about politics. Politics is all image, requires no skill or technical ability.
Yeah, I like that pinstripe suit you had. We used that in that graphic.
yeah, that
That's
was
that
good.
the blue stripe suit. Yeah, so we got you on here, and we were talking a little bit before the show, and I figure it's probably best to just have you tell everybody who you are, what you stand for. That sort of. Oh,
Hang on a second.
go for it.
I'll tell you the same thing I told Ryan Walters when he was on our show. Don't take up the whole show. Make it quick. Make it simple. Sell the shit and just go on. Okay.
We're politicians. Oh, well, that's fine. Well, as you mentioned, I'm running for State House 79. I ran 2 years ago in the primary and didn't make it through the primary, but we're going to take another run at it this time. I'm running kind of as what I'm calling the rational Republican. It's a little bit hard for Republican to win in this district, more than a little bit hard.
Explain rational Republican, if you would.
Well, you know, I think the rational side of it comes from you've got to meet the people where they're at, and you have to have the people in mind in all the decisions that you make. My philosophy of a state representative and any government official is that you are elected to go to either Washington or to Oklahoma City, the capital, to protect the people against the government. You can become a government man or company man. And if you go to work in a corporation, you should probably become a company man. But I spent 23 years as the county treasurer in Washington County up in Bartlesville. And, I purposefully did not become part of the organization per se, because the interests of the government organization are typically opposed to the public. There's never enough money in the eyes of government officials. I always say government has two insatiable appetites: more power and other people's money. And so
Nice.
you kind of have to be purposeful about it and remember who it is you work for and whose money that is. And the treasurer gets a pretty good taste of that because we bill out property taxes at Christmas time, and so you're basically standing in line with them with your hand in their pocket, taking the money from them, and you get a real good idea of what they think when you're doing that, because they're real happy to tell you. And people sit on the other side of my desk during times when we would send out delinquent notices and that kind of thing, and literally cry. And I wouldn't say
Literally,
that
they would be crying.
Oh, absolutely. You'd send out notices that it would appear we were going to sell their house. There's usually a 2-year period. I never sold anyone's house, but it can come to that in the tax collection business. And people would come in extremely stressed. I took office when I was 28, and I will say that my first few years I wasn't as tuned into people as I might have been. But as time went by, you just see them, and you see them day in and day out and year after year, and you should begin to get an empathy for them. And my biggest claim to fame, I felt, was they would come in crying and really upset, and we'd work our way through it. And at the end, we'd be sitting around laughing, and they'd leave there happy. And the adrenaline rush I would get off of that feeling of seeing them leaving there, feeling good about life again, that this burden has been removed from them. And it was so easy to do. And it's also real easy to do it the other way, to put the thumb down and, make their life difficult. But
why in the hell would you want to run for a House District 79 that you're going against an incumbent that's a Democrat, liberal, like Tim? And I love Tim.
We're everywhere, guys. I'm just gonna say,
yeah,
we're hidden in the dark recesses of the world.
Tim's gotten me out of jail before, but anyway, why would you want to run for this? I mean, it's a big district.
It is. They all, encompass somewhere around 40,000 people, the way they carve the districts up. This has been my life's passion since I was a little boy. I was in first grade when John Kennedy was assassinated, and I became just a news junkie, fascinated with politics. My dad was always involved in local precincts and that kind of thing, and so I was just brought up around it. I actually kind of fell into the treasurer's job. I got out of school in '83, which I like to call the peak of the oil bust, and it was a little difficult to find a job. And that was a job that I was offered as a deputy there. And I figured I'd go get a couple of years of accounting experience and move on. And the treasurer was ready to retire, and he kind of groomed me. And anyway, all of a sudden I found myself running for office. And, we ran that first campaign, was a primary, and we won a landslide 121 vote victory. The old hand counted ballots. It was midnight. It was really stressful. And then we ran for re-election again next time around, and it was a general election. And the power of the incumbent, we won by 5,500 votes. But
wow.
So it's just I just always have had this interest. I'm interested in politics, but there's a big difference between politicking, campaign, governing, and I'm actually more interested in the governing side than the politics of it, because that's where you really affect change, make things happen, and can do something meaningful. But you obviously have to win a political race in order to get there. One of the things that attracts me to this district race is we've run pretty far right candidates in the last 3 or 4 cycles. They've come close, but have not been able to win against Melissa. It's a fairly purple district, but Melissa, she's pretty far to the left, and I wouldn't call myself in the middle by any means, but more center right.
I would call you a little bit to the middle, Stan. Well, I don't want to offend you, but you're a little bit to the middle, and that's what attracts me, a staunch conservative Republican. That's what attracts me to you, because you have some real life experience with some real shit. Forgive my language, everybody, but you have some real life experience with some real shit that really brings you to the people.
I think that it makes me more pragmatic and able to understand and be empathetic with people, and to understand more than one point of view. I worked the Capitol some when I was in county government, was president of the County Officers Statewide Association. And you go down, and the Democrats controlled the House and Senate and governors, everything back in those days. And once you started talking to them, I found that they weren't necessarily just crazy. I didn't always agree, but I thought, okay, I do see where you're coming from. I see what your point is, And so,
oh, Did
Yeah,
you?
we lost him.
But
We
it
lost
comes down
you,
to the people
Stan.
don't like. You lose
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
back?
we got you back, buddy.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. So, well, you had talked about the emotions that would come from your, when you were secretary. Then, um, how were you able to be empathetic with those people? Like, what was going on in your life that allowed you to not become desensitized to that if you saw it over and over again?
Well, a couple of things. One of which, was being the tax collector and seeing people. Barnesville's not a little town, but it's not a great big town, and so we're really close to the people, and and taking money from them, like I say, and dealing with people who are under duress from time to time, and so that kind of began to change me, and then in 2007. As we talked about earlier, I developed an opioid habit and an addiction, and I chased that and chased that.
Hang on a second. Wait, well, you can't just say that and go
Let
past
me
it.
just jump right into.
No, yeah, you just floored me because I have too, and I just want everybody to be aware of this. You developed an opioid habit,
That's correct. Yes.
and you overcame that.
Yes, I guess you could say I overcame that. I had help overcoming that.
Because here's what I have to do every day, Stan. I have to make the conscious decision that I'm not going to take opioids today.
Well, everything, as everybody knows, if people who have been through this know, it's the one day at a time. That's the AA motto, and anybody that's been through addiction and
Oh my
tried
gosh,
to
this
overcome
is
it
okay. Go ahead. I'm
has
sorry.
done the one day at a time.
Thank you for
And,
sharing.
and so and part of the way that I overcame that is I like to say that police officers saved my life, by arresting me, and so eventually I chased it so hard that they caught up with me. And it was a huge story, of course, because I was the setting treasurer. It was a really, really long fall off of that little pedestal, setting up there in my cushy courthouse office with staff who, took care of all the day-to-day work. And man, it was over in the blink of an eye.
Okay, let me say this, Stan, because here I can. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional because I was the renowned paramedic in Oklahoma, right? I saved more lives than anybody else in 2010. Had an opioid addiction, went to the White House, got a medal, but nobody reached out when I got caught. When I hit rock bottom, nobody reached out and said, "Hey, can we help this guy?" Instead, they arrested me and put handcuffs on me and this and that, and it's hitting home for me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Some people that you think might stay by your side don't. People that you would not expect to rally to your cause do. It was a profound experience, of course. One of the things I remember real clearly that one of the arresting officers was the son of the former sheriff, and who had been sheriff when I first came into office, and he and I had been really close friends. And he had died of cancer, but he always called me BW, and he'd see me in the hall because, like I said, I was 28 when I came in, and so he always called me Boy Wonder. I'd pass him in the courthouse. He'd go, "What's going on, BW?" And I just loved that guy, and so anyway, it was his son, and I looked at him and I said, "You guys are ruining my life, right?" And he said, "We're ruining your life." And I got it. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything else. And so we went through some, and the DA, they insisted I go to a 6-month program. And so looked around, and so I went to the Howe Foundation out here on Garnett. Howe is drug and alcohol rehabilitation. Very structured, up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and clean the dorms, and then they go to work. They did like tree work, yards, moving crews, that kind of thing. Long day, but everything is just structured. You have lunch at noon, and you come in off the yard, and 5 o'clock dinner, program or so in the evenings, lights out at 9 o'clock. And so I
Just
did that, and it was 6 months. I was 45 days away from going home, and got caught with a cell phone. And
Uh-oh.
so
You
that
got that
started the 6 months.
contraband.
So, yep. And that started the 6 months over. And that was really difficult.
Oh,
But
what
that's
the hell
when
were you thinking? What the hell?
I wasn't exactly. I was thinking that I could do whatever I wanted, that I was above it. I was
it was
sneaky.
like, I gotta call my peeps, yo.
Yep, exactly. And that's when it began to take hold. And that next 6 months was really the turning point, because at that point I was like, Stan, you just really, I just led this life of, a county officer is like a fiefdom, and everybody around you um, treats you like you're the king, or queen,
Yeah.
as the case may be. And you just get entitled. I just got entitled.
I have to ask Tim as a liberal, and you know that Tim's a liberal Democrat. I
I
can't.
got to be something.
Yeah, we all got to
I
be
gotta be
something.
something.
But I
That's
got to
right.
ask Tim. After hearing all of that, Tim, what are your feelings? What are you thinking?
So what I'm thinking is that I often have trouble with when I vote for people, because I don't feel like a lot of people represent actual people, because there's more people that have had issues, all kinds of crazy things happen to their lives. And it's hard for me to see how another person that has never dealt with that represent a huge portion of people who are currently or have gone through that same thing. So when I listen to what you're saying, it personifies you a bit, takes you out of like, politician and into, just another person. So, with that, I can appreciate that. I do have one question. The How Foundation, do you think that of the stuff that you dealt with, was there anything that you saw today that you can think of that might be able to fix some of the problems in that particular situation, in that system? Is there something to do to help people better than what you got when you were there?
Well, I don't know. You know, as you're probably aware, it always comes down to the only way to recover is if you want it. There's no magic wand. There's no magic program. No magic anything. It comes down to, do you want it? Are you ready? And I saw that really firsthand being inside the How. One thing when I went in there, of course, I thought I was going to be the smartest one there, and all this kind of stuff, and they made fun of me after, I'd been there a while, and fit in, because when I went out to check it out before I went, I wanted to go to Cushing. They had a place in Cushing, which is an old oil man's mansion, and you had like two people in a room and in a bathroom, and bring your phone card and your blankie, and your mom if you want, kind of thing. But it was only 30 days, and so I couldn't do that. They insisted 6 months. So the How was free, other than you worked very hard, but you kind of worked for your room and board. But so I go to check it out. I even asked them if they had a hot tub, and which they got a kick out
That's
of.
some shit I would have asked too.
And I showed up in my Jaguar. It was wintertime, so I show up in the parking lot in my Jaguar. I've got this long wool coat on. I've got the collar flipped up in the back,
That's awesome.
And so later I worked for the dispatch guy, that particular division of it, guy Dan, and he was such a great guy. He was so mean. Everybody thought he was so mean that actually he wasn't. He was just driving the program. But he'd always go, that day you came out to check us out, see if we were good enough for you, in your Jaguar with your collar up. I'm like, I know. And they had bets on how long I would last, because I was a celebrity. Of course, they knew I was coming, and so they all were waiting. And but I worked on drilling rigs in the summer times when I was in college. I worked all day in kitchen when I was in high school. Grew up in a neighborhood of a bunch of boys, and we rode motorcycles and stuff. So I wasn't this button down. I kind of lived in a button down world, but that wasn't all. Back to the image thing, politics is kind of image, but still, I had always run with more of the the blue collar, I guess, for lack of a better term. And so, the work was kind of hard, but it wasn't as hard as drilling rig work. I've never done anything as hard as drilling rig work.
Oh my gosh. Let's.
And so anyway, I'll get off on that.
Yeah, Stan. Let's.
But at any rate, you would see guys that would come in, and some wanted it, some didn't. Some would put on the show, and then they would leave, and you'd see
Go
them
right
come
back to it.
And,
And the cycle
so anyway,
continues.
I had that cell phone. I got caught with the cell phone. They restarted me, and I'll sum it up here. That's when I began to realize that I was feeling entitled. I thought I could do whatever I wanted, and I needed to make some real changes in my life, and I did. And
I
then
I
from
can
there,
attest to that. I can attest to that.
and so then, so I'm able to empathize with those people. Tim and I talked about a little bit before we came on in the early 90s when they closed all the mental institutions around the state, and they just emptied them out. And all of a sudden our jail was overflowing. And
Right.
the state was leaning on us to build a new jail, threatening us with $10,000 a day fines because we just had all of these people that they shifted there. And so the counties eventually, couldn't handle all of that. And things have changed, I guess, in the world or whatever. But so now you find so many of those people out on the street. And it can be annoying to see these people on the street, but I can put myself in their place. I was fortunate that I had the kind of background and family support and whatnot that it didn't come to that, but it could have very easily come to that.
Well, I got a question about
I would like
that.
to see some reinstatement of those facilities and much better mental health treatment in the state and across the country. But obviously this is a state position. And so that's one of my major.
Yeah, don't get out of your lane, Stan. You're a state dude. What's your question, Tim?
Well, I was going to ask, did you happen to see or feel like there was any exploitation of those people that got transitioned from mental health into prisons? Did you see maybe it felt like they were using them for labor or anything? That just popped into my head. I don't know that that's the case, but.
Well, used to, when I first became treasurer, they would let inmates work, on like picking up trash along the roads and whatnot. And I think there's still some of that, but there were some court decisions that said that was, kind of inhumane treatment and wouldn't let them do it. Although the trustees wanted to do it because it was
Get 'em out
a
of
lot better than sitting around that cell 24/7.
Yeah.
So they were anxious to get out and work some. The how, it generates a good deal of income. It's a prison diversion facility, though. I mean, not everybody there is court ordered, but a lot are. We had a saying there, I am free to leave here anytime I'm ready to go to prison.
Right.
They didn't have to lock the door.
Let me ask you this, Stan, and we're just for people that are watching. We're not journalists. Tim is kind of a journalist, but I'm not a journalist. I just like to talk about shit. But I got a couple of questions for you. The first question is, you talked about your opioid use and recovery and going to jail and this and that. I've lost a sister that just made me hit rock bottom. How was it losing a wife out of rehab?
Oh, well,
if you don't feel comfortable,
no, that's fine. That was a huge turning point because there were aspects around this opioid stuff of women and whatnot, and so my relationship with my wife had been really bad for a number of years. I mean, I just was not really a very good person, and I came out of rehab wanting to do better than that. And she and I were, on pretty good terms, and we're working our way back and trying to
take your time.
Oh,
I think something popped up on the screen. Anyway, if it's not blocking you, it's okay.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to work things out. We had kids and whatnot, and so her dad fell and broke his hip, and so he was up here. We were in Bartlesville then, so she came, said she was coming up to see her dad, and offered to come with her. And she said, "No, I've got to make a couple other stops." And that was on a Friday night. And so the next day, I just started real estate, and then I had a meeting with a client that Saturday morning. And so I drove up here, actually past her as she was leaving Tulsa, and I was coming into Tulsa. And we talked on the phone until I got to my appointment. And I went in and had the appointment, went out, showed a couple of houses. And the last one I came out and I had voicemail. And I figured somebody wanted to see a house or something. And anyway, it was a state trooper, and wanted me to call him back. And my daughter, she was 19. I knew she was traveling back from Oklahoma City. And so that's the first thing that crossed my mind. And so I called Stephanie, and she answered, and so I was kind of confused. And so I called the trooper, and he kind of spooned it out. He said, well, Gina was involved in a fatality collision this morning, and unfortunately she didn't make it. And so my kids weren't little. Stephanie's youngest, she was 19, and Jordan was 29, and Grant 21, I guess. So they weren't little, but nonetheless, in an instant, their mom's gone, and here it all is with me. And we were on good terms, but there's still, the kids have been through quite a bit already, with everything that happened with me and all of this. And that was just really tough.
I didn't mean to throw that on you, but Tim and I have both been through some horrific shit. Tim, you can't even believe, I'm not throwing him under the bus, but he's been through some horrific shit. I lost my best friend of 32 years in a car accident. I know, and I didn't mean to throw. I told you I wouldn't sandbag you, but I kind of did.
That's okay. I thought it might come up, and it's fine. I've talked about it a lot. All of this I've talked about a lot. I've spoke at the Howe a number of times since I've left there, and other rehabs. And it's just unfortunately part of life, and it really was devastating.
It's a horrible part of life. It is
really terrible thing. It just caused me to kind of, try to do even better. And,
okay.
Do you think those things are guiding you now? Like, have brought you to this moment right now? All of this stuff you've just been talking about?
Yeah, there's no question. It's like, MASH was a big cult show whenever I was in college and whatnot. And there's one where they asked Father Mulcahy if he thought, it changed people. And he said, how can he said that when it's cold, the surgeons stand over the patient and warm their hands off the open wounds. He said, how can anyone look on that and not be changed? And so I don't know how you could go through these things. I guess some people do, and they continue to go back to it and whatnot, but
right.
It would be awfully difficult to come through these things and not change you. And I don't ever use her death as something that was a positive change for me. It did change me, but I don't look at it that it was something meant to affect me. The other, I believe, was meant to affect me. I think that God intervened in my life there to, it's like, I'm going to take you back, and you're out of control. You're hitting bottom here, and I'm not done with you. And,
right.
I'm going to destroy you. I've given you, and that moment, that time I sat in jail over the weekend, you relive it, and you can see the forks in the road, and how easy it would have been to have gone the other way and avoided all of it, and how easy it was to just take the wrong path, and think that you're having fun and living pretty flippantly, and just above it all. And it was a really hard knock, but I think that in the end, it's made me a much better person. And I always have liked political office and government, and I think it's prepared me to be really good at this.
Stan. Listen. Lane says, "Hello, gents. I don't mean to cut you off on that story. I want to get into some good shit though.
Well, I kind of agree with Lane. I know we've belabored it a bit, and
Let's talk about education. Scott Pressler, PragerU. Let's go.
all right. Well, so that's exactly what I was getting ready to transition to, was the education.
I knew you were, Stan.
and so that's obviously been a huge topic, and particularly in Tulsa, throughout the state, but really here in Tulsa and with TPS, and everybody has an opinion on it, and it's been ugly and nasty, and some on both sides. But to me, I've been following it and working on it. It was a major plank in my platform the last time around. It's more so this time. I think that it's to a point to where we have to get past the personalities, past the ideologies, and back to the kids. And what's the ultimate goal here? And that it should be to educate kids. And we can't lay all of the blame on Deborah Gist or on the board. I mean, they have their responsibilities, and I'm not trying to discount that. But as we talked earlier, we're dealing with a different type of atmosphere in the city of Tulsa than you are out in the suburbs or the rural areas. And a lot of these kids are coming out of generational poverty. They don't necessarily have the support system.
Oh my God! Please speak on that. What does generational poverty mean?
Well, I think that we have to be honest that a lot of things from the past, particularly with African Americans not being allowed to work back, 40s and the 50s, and even before that, the government, society in general, has really helped create generational poverty.
Oh my God, I love it. Keep going.
And so then, as you go forward, it's pretty easy to say, well, pull yourself up. Well, if you don't have the skills to do that, or the mindset, and if you get into this, lose a few paychecks, get yourself into financial bind, and experience the hopelessness that feels like.
Tim,
right?
You don't know what you're going to do, and you just lose all your drive, and your motivation, and your zest for the future. And so I would like to see, schools like this, urban schools in particular, begin to focus more on aspirational aspects to help. And I know that they probably are to a degree, and I'm not degrading teachers or anybody in there.
No.
The teachers, my goodness, I couldn't do that job. And
it's
tremendous respect for people who will put themselves in that situation.
So I have to throw this out there, if you'll allow me. This is something that, and Ron can vouch for this. What you're saying is, I agree with, and I've been saying that for a while now. I think maybe the issue is that for the problems that Tulsa has compared to, as you said, like the suburbs or even rural Oklahoma, those problems require more dollars per student to overcome. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would agree to some degree. We spend quite a bit. I would like to see more dollars make their way to the classroom per student, no doubt about it. I'd like to see more dollars make their way to teachers. I think teachers are underpaid.
Absolutely.
I think that what I've seen, being the tax collector, most of the money you collect goes to the schools, the property tax, most of the schools. So I've had close relationship with school administrators for 40 years.
But what about in TPS? You haven't had any.
Well, as far as one-on-one relationships with TPS administrators, not particularly. And I'm not saying go out there, go to the Education Service Center in the daytime and see how look at that parking lot.
That was a great sidestep, Stan. That was a great sidestep.
Well,
this man is a politician right here.
So, yeah, maybe more money, but what I'm saying is that I think more life skills
Yes.
life skill education
And trades.
and, and trades and well, yeah, trades, but college too. But trying these kids are young. You get them young. They have, even though they may come from more difficult backgrounds, you still can develop an aspiration and some ambitions by presenting, here's some things you can do and here's some real world experiences of doing that. Let's create a little business in our class, or you know, let's go do field trips, and just kind of reimagine it. I'm not an educator, so I don't want to sit here and try to tick off a bunch of solutions to it, other than I think the solution is we've got to have more aspiration and ambition for these kids so that they can see the path out of this generational poverty is education, is a good job on the other side. And I mean a job that gives you a living wage where you can support a family, where you can buy a home and have the things that I think most people aspire to, and that many of them have really, I think, probably don't see a path to that, and are hopeless in that aspiration.
Well, let me speak to this for a moment, because before we get to the PragerU stuff, I know Lane is salivating to get to that.
I am too.
I want to speak to the, because I hear what you're saying, Stan, and I agree wholeheartedly with pretty much everything you just said. But I want to kind of play devil's advocate here a little bit. And if there are programs that do a lot of the things that you are talking about, a lot of it is going to be required to have a relationship with the student that is greater than just, this is how you add 1 and 1 together. This is what happened back in 1819, right? There's going to be a lot more kind of parenting role from the school in order to instill these things. And a lot of people, that may turn them off. So maybe the issue or a solution is messaging and how it comes across to the constituents, that yes, it may seem like there's grooming going on, right? We're indoctrinating kids, when in fact what we're trying to do is bridge that gap between the parents who are maybe on drugs or just so poor and exhausted from working that they don't have time, or whatever the case is. Do you think messaging is important here to kind of skew that a little bit?
Well, certainly, I think messaging is, and I think you're right that there needs to be more one-on-one. And when you say parenting, I think that will kind of scare people. But in some respects, as far as parenting from an educational standpoint, but I think that needs to be focused on reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yes, sir.
And my first grade teacher, I still remember it, even though it's been 100 years ago, but the first day of school wrote on this chalkboard the golden rule and said, that's the way we're going to treat each other. Now, I won't say that we always lived up to that. Obviously, we were kids, but we knew that was the standard, that we're going to treat people like we want to be treated. And then that should be pretty much the way it is. And I'm not sure that we need so much of this sectioning people off into different groups. I think everybody should treat everybody the way that they would like to be treated. And, I don't know that we need to be going into school and everybody proclaiming their sexual preferences and those kind of things. I mean,
hang on. That's a great segue into what I'm fixing to say, Stan.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hear it, Ron.
Are you ready? Everybody take a deep breath.
I feel like whether we're ready or not, it's coming. So
it's coming.
Just give it to us, Ron.
Okay.
I mean, it's Ron, so I knew I'd be ready for anything.
Yeah, here's the thing. With PragerU, which is a non-accredited, just like PBS or NBC or CNN or any other media outlet, it's one man's opinion on how to teach kids, and it's a conservative, Christian-based faith teaching. And I know it's not like ordered or it's not required, but there are going to be those teachers out there that take that and just run with it. So I have a problem with politics, religion, faith, sexual identity stuff being taught in schools. Why not just teach kids how to add and do math and arithmetic and read and write without, especially in the elementary and the middle school ages, why inject that indoctrination, leftist or right wing? Why do that?
Oh no, I agree.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for saying that.
because I don't think it's all one-sided, and because a lot of people that don't like the left-wing indoctrination, but there are people that don't like the right-wing indoctrination.
Oh my gosh, Stan, thank you so much.
So if we could keep ideology somewhat
Yes.
out of the mix, again, there are just basic human moral principles out there.
Thank you, Stan.
We can adhere to in general, treat people the way you want to be treated. I mean, there's things that the 10 Commandments don't necessarily have to be a religious.
Tim, I think, does this not resonate with you?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I completely agree. There should be no bend to ideology in the classroom, whether it's one side or the other, or whether it's one religion or the other. But
now,
I
if
mean,
you get
that's
in the upper grades and you want to have some open discussion about
Right.
things,
Oh,
that's a little
sure.
bit different. But
Right.
down here in elementary school, I mean, in particular, let's learn how to do the basics.
Right.
And then history should be taught honestly.
I agree.
yeah, of course, yeah.
There's no question. And there is very, very good things from our past, and there are very, very bad things. And there's nothing wrong with portraying both of those for what they are.
Heather,
And hopefully we have come. I mean, I'm old enough that I can remember back when segregation was still a thing.
really? You're that old?
I know it.
You look like you're 108 years old.
Well, it'll
Oh,
be
my
66 Thursday, and now it wasn't something that was legal where I lived, but in
Where
Bartlesville.
did you live?
Well, I lived in Bartlesville,
Oh, okay.
but it wasn't very far from here. If you got over into Tennessee and those kind of places, I mean, there still was, and then there was just the unspoken. I mean, it was
Right.
just racially, it was a much, much different time in the 60s. And
So you've seen the progress that we've
Oh.
all made.
right, and I'm not saying that we have reached the promised land, but we're a long, long way from where we were.
Right.
Long
Yeah.
ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we need to keep striving for that. Absolutely.
Now, I wanna pull
part of this
something
is-
up
and
real
then
quick.
Part of this is just leftover. I mean, there's just a lot of leftover, collateral damage from those things. And, we can hate on people or whatever, but what is really best for society, for all of us as a whole, is if we can pull people out of generational poverty, pull them out of illiteracy and those things, and get them productive members of society to where they're happier and they're more prosperous and they're gaining in their life, and then everybody gains from that.
And then
Yes,
their
sir.
children gain from it.
And then really, education is really a huge, huge key to that.
Yeah, it is. And now because we started on PragerU, and I pulled this up. I want to just read this to everybody. This is from PragerU's YouTube channel. I just want to point this out here. It says, funded by hundreds of where's that?
You're such a liberal. What are you doing right now?
Oh, now I can't even. Yeah. Serving audiences of all ages, our informative content offers a free alternative to the dominant left-wing ideology in culture, media, and education. And then even on the website, like it's very clear that they have an agenda that they're
Oh,
pushing.
it's super clear.
And
yeah.
so, and I brought that up because of Lane's comment here. He said, here's the deal with PragerU. You cannot allow teachers to use CNN 10, Crash Course, YouTube videos, and not allow them to use PragerU. Some say it's not accredited, et cetera, et
That's
cetera.
true, though.
The difference is that CNN and, Crash Course and whatever didn't come outright and say, hey, we're on the other side, and if that's
Oh,
what we're going to show. That's what we're going to show you.
No,
That's
Tim. That's no CNN and that's,
CNN 10. Hear me out. If you've watched CNN 10, and I've spent hours watching the stuff because I had somebody from Owasso was complaining about it, and I'm like, why are they showing this in school at all? Right? No, and so I watched it, and none of it was biased at all. It was.
But it's CNN.
It was,
Tim.
it's a news organization.
It's a leftist news
It's
organization.
a news organization. PragerU isn't a news organization.
I'm sorry, Stan. This is what Tim and I do. I'm sorry.
And see, we're not arguing with Stan. We're arguing with each other.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's what I was needing, a little break anyway. So.
Yeah.
No,
so the other side a little bit there, if you like, Tulsa public schools are really kind of a quasi private school today. They get $80 million in nonprofit money. And so the nonprofit money is very much like federal funds. It comes with strings attached. The nonprofits, they give the money and they say it goes for this curriculum or that curriculum. And they're mostly, left wing programs, because that's what the nonprofits. And so I agree that I don't think there should really be indoctrination on either side. People,
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it should be everybody's individual choice.
Where kids can kind of make up their own mind. I really hate to see so much hatred towards the country based on the past. It's,
Let me ask you this, Dan, because I've been beaten up, and I know that I ran for Tulsa County GOP and everything, but if you allow Christ, which I love Jesus, everybody knows that I love Jesus. I've got a relationship with Jesus. If you allow Jesus or any other religious God into school, you have to allow all of them into school. Is that not right? Or am I just off my rocker?
Well, I think that's right.
Okay.
I think that's what it opens the door to.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
And so it, that's that's really an issue, because if you allow one, where are you going to draw the line?
Right. Oh my God.
I think that they all should be allowed in the school and within the individuals. But,
right.
Yeah. And they are.
And they are.
Yeah, generally speaking, like I'm an atheist, and I never talked about.
Not everybody. I'm not an atheist. Everybody.
Some people have heard this story before, but I never talked about God or the lack of God to my kids, because I feel like that's a personal choice and one they can make when they get to a point to make it. Because to me, it's not wholly relevant to being a good person whether you believe in God or not. So I didn't really talk about it. And then within, a week of them being in school, my daughter's come back from public school and she's, God loves me and this and that. And, we never talked about it. So she got it from school. So it's definitely there. And that's fine. I was totally okay with it. I understood it. And we're in Oklahoma. So, it is to be expected.
Well, I guess it's a little surprising that it's coming out of the school, but is that, she go to a Owasso school?
Well, it was other students, I'm sure, right? So
and other students, so kids, they're going to interact and they're going to hash that stuff out amongst themselves, and they're going to hash out sexuality and those things amongst themselves.
Exactly. Right? Thank you so much. Yes.
It shouldn't come from the instructors.
Yes, that is the difference in my book.
Oh my God,
if the students want to have talks about it in the classroom, that doesn't bother me at all. But the moment that the teacher starts talking about it, because that's a totally different, then you're talking about something
at lunch and that kind of thing.
Right.
Then it becomes indoctrination when the teacher starts talking about it.
Right.
Whether it's left or right, I don't want either. Public schools is a sacred ground for me.
As it should be, because it's for everybody, and it should be for everybody.
Well,
Right.
and so exactly, and then so this is my thing on public schools, and I've always been a big supporter of public schools, and throughout my career, not that the county treasurer ever made that decision, but still it's a political job, so you get involved in those kind of issues. I've always spoken against vouchers and those kind of things because I really believe that an educated populace is in society's best interest. Now, I will say a lot of what I saw happening at TPS led me to, you know, kind of say maybe we need to look at giving some additional choices because they weren't really, I mean, it is one side, has been one sided over there.
Yeah.
And so I can understand people wanting some other choices, but I still think that at the end of the day, fixing public education is in all of our best interest. And if we just go to all these private schools, we are going to leave the bottom end of the socioeconomic spectrum there.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Tim,
And
tell him.
Throw them away.
Stan, speak. Tim, tell him your idea about what you should do to Tulsa Public Schools.
Yeah, so generally, if you look at really any huge school district, they have issues, especially because of the types of children that have to go there and their parents and whatnot. But I believe that having one person run a school of like 40,000 kids or something, I just think that's too much. So if you broke Tulsa into separate school districts, each with their own boards, each with their own superintendents to run those smaller areas, I feel like that would pour the good resources into those areas and give some relief to them and have a little bit more, I don't know, some flexibility. Because as it is, that's just one person over that many kids. That seems ridiculous to me.
Well, I think that's a plausible idea. Probably run into some Republican resistance to more districts because they think there's too many already. And I would tend to agree that we have an awful lot of school districts, but I think that's a very interesting concept to break up the large districts because it is a really difficult thing. And in a city this size, I mean, it may not be the biggest city in the world, but it's still a pretty good size city.
Yeah.
So you get in different quadrants of the city, even you have different types of students who have different types of needs. And
Right.
one size doesn't really fit all. The bottom line with me is let's succeed and let's
I
help
like
Right.
that.
get these kids to succeed. And again, I'm not running saying, by golly, I have every answer. I'm not an educator, but I'm saying let's have the opportunity to explore some things like what you're talking about,
Right.
other things, change it up, because to just sort of turn a blind eye to it, to parade out kids that are from the magnet schools with 180 IQs and say this is the typical TPS student, that's not fair. And then to say that the kids that come from Hispanic areas are only reading at 4%
Right.
proficiency is the typical. I mean, that kind of stands to reason that they're
Stan.
probably not going to be less proficient at English than others. And so all of those things need to be addressed, on their own face. And it's not just, it's just too easy to go, you're good, I'm bad, or I'm
Right.
bad, I'm good, you're bad. There's a lot more to it. And there's a lot
Right.
of using these kids as political pawns.
Here's
Yeah.
And
That's
well,
not serving them well.
I'll speak to that. And this is, I think, a partisan problem where kind of the left and the right start to, it's like when one thing becomes the target of another, they will just shut the blinders on and they'll be like, oh, it's great just because the other person hates it. So we have to acknowledge
Exactly.
that we have to acknowledge, and liberals, and I'm talking to you liberals out there that you're doing this with education, you have to acknowledge that you have a problem before you can ever fix it. And you
Right.
can't say that and come to Tulsa's rescue and, oh my goodness, Ryan is being so terrible, and just come to their rescue with nothing other than it needs to stay the same. No, it doesn't. There are problems. We have to acknowledge those problems, and then we have to all get together and figure out a way to fix it without breaking it, which is going to be the alternative. That pendulum is going to swing all the way to the other side.
Well, it's like addiction. The first step is to admitting you have a problem.
God,
Absolutely.
How are we going to
man,
address?
that was the best. That was the best
Thank you.
thing
Absolutely.
you said
we
all night
we
long.
do have a question. Ron had put this up there earlier. Lane wants to know what you're going to do to get the youth vote in your district. Heavily Democratic area. You have to switch. You have to switch the youth vote. Got to sell something to the youth, not just the same old conservative Republican talking points. I have to say, Lane, what he's talking about.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Well, it's a great question, and I have actually thought of that, and I'm still trying to find some youth in this district to appeal to.
Well, Lane knows.
There's a lot of us out here that aren't. But I think the education issue is one in particular. The addiction issues, I hope, are, and I don't come at any of that from the typical Republican talking points. I'm a Republican, and I have been all my life, but I am, so these are my heroes. Winston Churchill, Henry Bellman. Now, you guys may not have heard of Henry Bellman.
I know him. Yeah, he was the governor of Oklahoma.
So he was, and I run into so many people that never heard of Henry, but I'll give you a little background on him because I love Henry Bellman. Henry Bellman is the first Republican governor in Oklahoma in 1960. There were 5 state senators in the Republican Party in 1960 out of 100, out of 99, I believe it is.
Wow.
5 Republicans. He did lots of business with the Democrats because otherwise you get nothing done. He chaired Nixon's statewide campaign until he decided he didn't like Nixon, and so he resigned. He then ran for U.S. Senate. Henry Bellman was the tie-breaking vote on school busing.
Really?
Oh, nice.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And the Panama Canal.
Wow.
Shut up. Are you serious, Stan?
And so he was a pariah in the Republican Party after that. And then, lo and behold, in 1986, he popped up and ran for governor and won again.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he won re-election after his vote on desegregation. And he, in his biography, he says that, it was pretty tough, but when the votes came in from around the capital, which was the African-American area, that he carried that very heavily, of course, and they rewarded him. And so he was very pragmatic. He was a statesman, and he did what he thought was the right things to do. Same with Churchill. And so I like to think of myself and pattern myself after those guys, that I'm a statesman. I'm a man of the people. My job is not to go to Oklahoma City and represent a party. It's to go to Oklahoma City and represent people. And as I stated, this is somewhat of a purple district, which means that you have to be somewhat pragmatic and you have to listen to some other voices if you're going to be effective. And I'm not going to compromise my principles by any means, but one thing I learned in being in office, these two people would say things and they'd be kind of like internal buzzwords and trigger me, and I'd cut them off and just start talking. And then I find out that's not what they were talking about at all. Right. And I began to learn to listen to people. And it's amazing what you can learn when you're listening. And
listen.
Sure. That's what I want to do, and build coalitions. And as I said, I don't have all the answers on this education thing, but it is dramatically important to me. And I want to hear voices on that and see progress made there and see improvement and see kids come out of there and do better in life. And I don't want to be dramatic. It breaks my heart or whatever, but it is really discouraging to see kids that have no future. And so many of those kids end up then in the legal system, and then it just gets worse.
And it's a cycle, and it'll just
it is just
at some point,
and then you
have to break it.
And people they hate seeing these homeless on the streets, and they really, kind of have a big issue with them personally, almost, and a lot of those people are there just through circumstance and through their life, the way they were brought up, the environment they were brought up in. I just think that we can do better. I think we can do a lot better.
Absolutely. And, shit happens. We're coming
does.
up on the hour. So I wanted to say this before.
Probably destroyed my whole campaign here, right?
You probably
No,
you
I
did.
know.
You absolutely did.
No, I think people are seeing that, moderation, I think is the key here. If you try to ask for everything and then some, it upsets everybody else. So if you want like things to actually get done, realizing that making concessions is, in my opinion, the way to go about it. But I want to say Lane, maybe for the first time in his life, agreed with me. So I just wanted to publicize that and let everybody know Lane agreed.
I have like 2 minutes that I need to do some stuff.
Okay. Lane says Trump or DeSantis.
Come on.
I will probably be voting for the Republican nominee.
That's what I'm talking about.
There you go.
That's what I'm talking about.
Go. Well, Stan, I think we're gonna have to get out of here. Do you have any last words? We'll give you
hang on.
Go.
Hang on. I want to have the word before Stan. Last words. Stan. Melissa Provenzano, your candidate, your opponent, is going to come on our show on the 26th. She has, as far as I know, Tim, said that she would come on with you after her show with us and discuss shit.
Me and her?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Now, that wasn't set in stone, but it sounded to me as if she was open to the idea if, you get the nomination and that you're the direct, competitor, whatever, that she would come on.
I've got to get through the primary, and
right
after do this. And I want to say this about Melissa. I ran into her last time around. She was going door to door. We happened to be on the same street going door to door.
Really?
Yeah. And I had a really nice visit with her, and I think highly of Melissa. We have different ideological views.
She's blocked me off Twitter. Melissa, you need to unblock me off Twitter.
They shouldn't do that. You've got to take it if you're in office. But I do have a certain respect for her. She's a tough competitor. She's a tough campaigner.
She is.
And I would not look at her as somebody just going to roll over by any means. Obviously, she's won these last few elections, and I think the candidates we've run in those elections have been not right for this district. And I'm going to be in a primary in one that has run against her and lost already, and I don't think is right for this district. But
who do you see as your? Is there going to be somebody come out against you in the primary?
Well, the guy that won the primary last time is running again as well.
Who?
Well, Paul Hassink.
Oh, whatever. Paul.
Well,
oh my God.
And I like Paul. And I have I have a great deal of respect for Paul as well. I just think that in this district, one thing about you is that we always. Who was that? Something the other day. So you don't have to do a thing. You don't have to wonder what he thinks.
Right.
But I think it takes the right candidate to be able to win this district. And even then, I think it's it's a bit of an uphill climb because she's the incumbent, and she's well thought of, and so. But I think that there are some aspects to us that are very different, and I think that I can be effective at making some changes. Melissa comes out of school administration, and so when I went into county government, they had a motto. This is the way we've always done it, and you get kind of married to your philosophies and whatnot. And, I try not to do that. It's not the way we've always done it that always works the best. I'm more than happy to appear with her.
I try not to do that either, but with Melissa, she's blocked me. I can't talk to her on social media at all. And Tim, I'm sorry. Here's the thing. I'm not going to sandbag Melissa either. I'm going to have her on the show and just talk to her like I did you. Let her explain her views and talk to the people, but don't don't censor me. Don't stop your constituents from talking to you. Right, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, I agree. You know, as Stan was pointing out that, yeah, I'm sure you got a lot of flack for being the tax man. I mean, that's, you know, nobody likes paying taxes, or at least I never have loved it.
Yeah, most
So,
people
so
do.
most people don't. So I think you understand that, and but yeah, I agree with Ron. But we are overtime here. Do you have? I give you 30 seconds, Stan, to plead your case to District 79. 30 seconds. Go.
All right, thank you. Well, one thing that you can go to Stan, the number 4 Oklahoma, Stan, the number 4 Oklahoma.com, and you can see a great deal more of my platform and other things in my background and whatnot. You know, I'm just looking for a change. I would like to see, you know, I think people are so polarized, and I would like to try to bridge the gap between people, particularly on this education issue, on mental health. Uh, you know, drive economic development in here that is hurting us. Education is hurting us from driving new jobs into particularly the district because people do not want to move in here. You know, I'm a real estate agent as well. It is difficult to sell houses in the Tulsa Public School District to young families. They don't want to bring their kids into this district. They want to be out in the suburbs, and that's hurting us. I think that's hurting job growth. And so, you know, I just have a really large degree body of work and the background in this kind of stuff. I'm very able to listen to people, to learn things, to adopt new ideas, and I fight really hard for what I believe in. I won't be up there being a shrinking violet. One of the things we
I
didn't
agree
do,
with that.
I do want to mention is I want to change the election dates on these school boards from the April election
Oh,
November
yes.
cycle so that we're getting 10% turnout in April. We'll get 65 to 70% in the November elections. We'll have better cross section of representatives on the school boards, and that may change some of the things that are done. I don't know, but it'll certainly involve more people. And I will fight for that. That is being hung up today in the speaker's office. That is not being allowed to come out of committee and go to a vote of the floor. I'm not saying that I can necessarily push it out of there, but I don't see any state representatives or senators standing up, beating on the bully pulpit today, trying to get that done. I will be at the bully pulpit in front of the press every single day if that's what it takes until I can get that out of that logjam and get that out to a floor vote and try to get that changed so that we have more people involved in the education system in the state of Oklahoma.
Love it.
That's excellent. Well, Stan, it was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
We had a
really
great time.
appreciate it.
I'm really honored you guys had me on. I've enjoyed it very much, and been
Will
great.
you come on
exchange.
again?
I'd come on again. This was great to be able to just speak my mind and just get out here in front of people and just kind of be honest about what I think and what I want to do.
Well, and you did that today, sir, and the honor is all mine, and I'm sure Ron's as well. But we will catch up with you as it gets closer to time for people to start voting.
Okay. Thank you
All right.
guys very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
You have
it.
yourself a good one. Thanks to everybody for watching. I appreciate everybody
Hey,
your
Tim.
involvement in the comment section. What's up?
Do you think he'll come back on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
Do you
he'll
think
come
we're
back
going to
on.
be able to get like Melissa Provenzano on here with him?
That I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for her, but she seemed open to the idea. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And to everybody watching, we'll make that announcement if it comes.
I love that he's open to the moving the elections for school board to the general.
Yes. Yes. I'm so glad he brought that up because I'd forgot about it. We talked about that before the show started. I'm glad he added that at the end because that's something that we've tried to get through as well.
Right.
Lane says, do you think Tim is happy? Yes, I'm happy.
Absolutely. Tim, and I have to say this to you, Tim. You made some shit happen today. Good job.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it was a luck of the draw and just the stars aligned, everything went good. So I'm definitely happy. And so September 26th, I
26th.
believe, 26th at 11 a.m., Melissa Provenzano will be on.
Oh,
and
can't wait.
Then thereafter, we'll catch back up with Stan and then maybe have them both on at the same time. Who knows? Ron, do you have anything else?
Nothing else.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll catch you all next time. Peace.